Book Besties, welcome or welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Amanda. I love to read. Today, I'm going to be combining my end of month wrap up for the month of December, along with something that I've never done on my channel or in real life, which is I'm going to be making a TBR for the month. The reason being that I don't normally make TBRs is because I am such a mood reader that even if I'm the one who tells me I'm gonna read that book or I need to read that book, my brain goes, we want to read anything but that book that you picked. So yeah, we don't pick TBRs here, but there are a couple of books that I want to read before the end of the year, especially books that are necessary to read in December, because being a mood reader, I also really read off of the vibes, especially like seasonal vibes. I have a few books on my shelf that are winter related or holiday related that I want to go ahead and get read. They are things that, to be honest, I'm wondering, should I keep them on my shelf? You know, at least one of them, because one of them is a Tessa Bailey book. So anyways, slightly disappointed in myself. I only read 10 books this month. I know. And on top of that, 2 of them were like 60-page novellas. To be fair, I did read a couple of really chunky books and books that I was really excited about or really wanted to get to this month, so it is what it is. Getting into my wrap up, the first book that I read this month you guys saw in my reading vlog, which is If It Makes You Happy by Julie Olivia. This book is a contemporary romance that is set in the fall of 1997 in a really small town in Vermont, and it follows 2 characters, Cliff and Michelle. They basically end up meeting each other because at the beginning of the book, Michelle's mom passes away, and before she passes away, her parents retired, moved away to this really small town in Vermont, and bought an Airbnb. Wow. They bought a bed and breakfast, a regular B&B. After her mom passes away, her dad very naturally is like, I don't really want to be there anymore, so one of my kids needs to take over running the inn for us. It is supposed to be Michelle's younger sister. However, her younger sister is going to college and needs to finish and graduate before she moves to Vermont. In the interim, Michelle moves to this small town in Vermont and starts taking care of the bed and breakfast. And next door to the bed and breakfast is Cliff. Cliff is a single dad with 2 daughters, one who is 6 and one who is 16. It just kind of goes from there. There's not, you know, it's a small town contemporary romance. There's not like a major plot that's going on. They just become friends, they become lovers at some point. It was a fun time. If you watched my reading vlog, thank you for watching me sob on the internet. If you've not seen it, please go watch it. You will see my real-time reactions and me sobbing to the end of this book, because first of all, the end of the book itself was very emotional, but the epilogue, I don't know why I keep turning into an Italian when I talk about this epilogue. The epilogue was so good. I can't tell you why, because it will ruin it. Someone ruined it for me and I was really upset about it, but it was still really good nonetheless. It was fabulous. I rated this book 4.5 stars. Next book on my list, I will put up on the screen because I don't have a physical copy of it. I did read this on KU, and this is Little Stranger by Leigh. This was also in my reading vlog, and this is a totally different book than the first book. This one is a dark, taboo romance between foster siblings. Yeah, listen, some of y'all think it's super weird. It's not that it's not weird, but like just hearing foster siblings freaks a lot of people out, which I think is kind of strange because they're not blood related. Like, yeah, they grew up together, whatever, but like, they're not blood related, so who cares? That honestly was like the least weird part about this book. Yeah. This book follows Olivia and Malachi, who are foster siblings. The book starts out with Olivia only being 7 years old, and then it moves into her being 11, and then 16, and then 18. And it's really just to show you how they get adopted around the same time, how they become trauma bonded very quickly, and kind of how their weird taboo relationship starts. Then it gets real weird and basically turns into 300 pages of torture porn. So I rated it 3 stars. It wasn't the worst thing I've ever read, but it also wasn't wasn't super great. One thing I really did, actually a couple of things that I really did enjoy about this book is that the chapters were super duper short. The chapters for the most part, and if it makes you happy, were entirely too long and kind of degraded my reading experience, but the chapter lengths in Little Stranger were chef's kiss. They were perfect. It was that like bingeable, only like 3 to 4 pages for every single chapter. It was great. The other thing that I liked about it is the male main character, Malachi. First of all, he's a psychopath. What can I say? I love a psychopath. And he is also mute for a good majority of the book until he finds his voice, basically. But it was kind of cool that the author explored mutism and what that looks like and how she was able to write about them signing back and forth to communicate. So I thought that was interesting. The next book that I read this month was actually something that I listened to strictly on audio, and it is called Ghosted by Sarah Reddy. I'm gonna read the synopsis just to show you like why I decided to read this book, because I was like, what the fuck? Is this not a real book? I guess this is only in audiobook form. I don't know. It's not on Kindle. Anyway, I'll try and explain it best I can. Basically, and first of all, this is a paranormal romance, if you couldn't tell by the title. This book follows Jillian, who is a reporter slash writer for the local like tabloid called The Expose. She moves into this apartment in New York City that is basically like, I don't know, they call it like a sex dungeon or something, because the whole thing is covered in mirrors. Once she's by herself in this apartment, she is met by a man who's not a man, he's a ghost. He's handsome and shirtless, and she's like, hey, what the fuck are you doing in my apartment? Long story short, he basically explains that they are friends, or they were friends when he was alive, but he doesn't remember a whole lot more about being alive other than the fact that they were friends. Well, Jillian, she has some trauma. She does not talk to men. I can't remember exactly what happened to her. It's explained to you at some point, but something happened to her previously. Oh, never mind. I remember what happened, but I won't tell you because it will definitely spoil something. But she did have this traumatic experience that basically led her to believe that she can't or shouldn't talk to men anymore. So her dating life is kind of abysmal. She has this friend who is determined to set her up and matchmake her. She keeps going on all of these dates and not talking. That is so unrealistic. So when she meets Daniel and she's actually able to talk to him, she's like, oh my God. They end up having a romance. However, he then disappears. And that's kind of like where the rest of the story goes, is you're trying to figure out, why did he disappear? Where did he go? So Daniel, the ghost, is actually a real person, and she finds that person and kind of like weasels her way into his life because she believes that the ghost version of him was sent to find her so that she could save him. It was weird. I'll just say that. Was it entertaining? Sort of. However, the reason why I gave this book such a low rating, which was 2.5 stars, is because first of all, it's so long, like 500 pages, like a 13-hour audiobook. It was way too long for what it was. The other thing that pissed me off was when he disappears, there's something that you find out before that that leads you, or at least me, it left me to believe that the story was going in a completely different direction than it actually ended up going. And so I felt like I was on this wild goose hunt the entire time trying to figure out what was going on when what was going on was actually completely different. It just irritated the absolute shit out of me. Moving into book 4. Book 4 you also saw me read in my reading vlog, which was One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. This is like the exact part where I dropped off reading the physical book and went exclusively to the audiobook, which is why there's no tabs in the back half. I'd be doing that sometimes. So I didn't talk much about this in my reading vlog. Let me kind of like actually recap what this story is about. So if you don't know, One Dark Window is like a gothic fantasy romance. You know, it's fantasy forward, little smidge of romance. This book follows the female main character, like it's her point of view the entire time. I have heard that book 2 is very different, so keep that in mind. But book 1 follows Elspeth. She is a girl living in a world where there's been a plague, and that plague has caused certain people to then have magic. That magic is not allowed in their world, of course. So there's a grumpy king somewhere who's trying to kill off all the people who have this magic. The only magic that is allowed in their world is called card magic, with the magic system in this book is based on things like tarot cards, but they're called Providence cards. Basically, each card, there's 12 different kinds, and each one of them gives you a very specific type of magic. It has no loyalty, so it doesn't really matter who picks up the card. They just have to tap it 3 times to basically activate it, and then tap it 3 more times to deactivate it. Elspeth is, of course, an infected person in their world, but her entire life, no one has really known that she has any sort of magic, and she doesn't even think that she has magic. She just thinks she's cursed because she has this nightmare inside of her head. It's a voice of sorts. Along the way, she meets someone named Raven. They both join forces because they basically are both on the same quest to collect all of these cards, because once you have all of the cards, you essentially should be able to eradicate the plague from their world, thus releasing all these people from having ailments, the magic they're not supposed to have, so on and so forth. It's a win-win for everybody. I did rate this book 4 stars, however, it was a little bit disappointing. And that's just because my expectations were so incredibly high. It's really just because this is such a well-loved book. My expectations were here. They should have been here. It happens. Next book that I read this month was called Frost by C.N. Crawford, and this is the first book in the series called Frost and Nectar, which is a duology. This book is a dark romantasy that technically follows 2 main characters, or is dual point of view with Ava and Torin. However, in the first book, you only get 2 chapters, I think, from Torin's point of view. What initially drew me to this book is the premise, which is basically Ava is a fae person living in the human world because she was basically exiled after her parents died when she was little from the fae world and was raised by humans. There is a place nearby called Fairy, which is the fae world, and in the fae world there is a king named Torin. Apparently, is it annually? I think it's annually. That wouldn't make a whole lot of sense though. I think it's just tradition. It's tradition that whenever there's a king who is single, they have a competition held that's essentially like The Bachelor mixed with Hunger Games, where there's 100 fae girls who compete to win the spot to be the queen of this kingdom. Ava ends up getting brought into this competition after a very interesting night where she meets Torin, and Torin has some issues. He needs to find someone to be his queen that he's not going to fall in love with, and because of this meet cute of sorts that happens between him and Ava, he's like, you're perfect. I can literally never fall in love with you. So come to my kingdom, join this competition. I'll try and keep you alive, and thus you will be my queen and we will save my world. I rated this book 3.5 stars. In my review so far, it just says, I don't know how to rate this. I didn't realize it would end on a cliffhanger. I guess I'll get back to you after I read book 2. And I'm still currently in the middle of reading book 2 because I've kind of lost interest in the story, to be honest. The second book so far is obviously very different because the competition is over, which was the whole reason I was interested in the first book, so it was something I read. Book number 6 that I read this month was Good Spirits by B.K. Borison. This I read exclusively on audiobook, which I'm starting to learn, if I'm not immersively reading, having the physical book as well as the audiobook, I am missing so many things, and I'm not pulled into the book enough to like really love it. Over the course of the last 6 months or so that I've been listening to audiobooks, I have learned about myself that sometimes I pay attention, sometimes I don't. When I don't pay full attention, we're in Italian again. If I don't pay full attention, there's things that I'm missing, which means that I'm not getting the full story, which is, it obviously is affecting my rating. And that happened with Good Spirits, unfortunately. While I was listening to it, there was a lot of other stuff going on. I was in the middle of trying to film my reading vlog that I put up recently. Brimstone came out. It was Thanksgiving. There just was a lot of things happening. Totally did not give it my full attention. So if you don't know anything about this book, it is a paranormal romance between a human and the ghost of Christmas past. This is Harriet and Nolan, by the way. Harriet gets visited by the ghost of Christmas past, and she's like, well, wait a second, isn't the ghost of Christmas past supposed to come to somebody who like needs to relive their past and figure out like where they went wrong and how to be a better person? She's like, I don't think I have anything like that in my life. Like, I'm a really good good person. I've never done anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. And Nolan is, of course, like, well, obviously I was sent here for a reason, so let's go through your past and we'll figure out why I'm here. Well, he ends up also not really finding anything wrong with her, and he's equally as confused as to why he ended up being assigned to her. And he even goes back to his boss and is like, there's nothing wrong with this girl. Why am I here? That's kind of like the entire story is it's the mystery of why Nolan got sent to Harriet and all of that. It ended so differently than I thought it was going to. The ending was absolutely incredible. The last 50 pages, or the last like hour or so of the book, emotional. I was crying. I was in it. It was so good. It ended so beautifully. I would highly recommend this audiobook because Nolan is Irish. One of my favorite accents to listen to. The next thing I read this month is part of the, I don't know what it's called, Under the Mistletoe collection. Under the Mistletoe collection is a little set of, I believe, 5 or 6 holiday themed novellas that Amazon put out last year on Kindle Unlimited, which has the audiobooks. So last year I read the one by Ali Hazelwood and the one by Tessa Bailey, but I had no interest in reading the other ones because they were from authors I've never heard of, and they also all had horrific reviews and very low ratings. So I was like, yeah, no, I'm good. But given how slow my reading month was this month, I was feeling really self-conscious about the lack of books that I read, so I was kind of trying to up that number a little bit and also trying to get myself more in the Christmas spirit. The first one that I read this month is Only Santa's in the Building by Alexis Daria, who I did not know is the same author as You Had Me at Hola, which I actually own, so that's cute. I actually really enjoyed this little story. So this follows Evie, who is a comic book illustrator, which y'all probably don't know this because I've never talked about it, but I actually used to actively collect comic books, so I have like 7 short boxes of comics in my room somewhere, and used to actually really want to be either a comic book illustrator or a comic book colorist or a comic book writer. I just used to love comic books, so this was like a really niche thing for this main character to be, which I loved. Anyways, so she moves into this apartment building, and I think she moved in maybe like 6 months ago when the story starts, and she has a super handsome upstairs neighbor named Theo, who apparently looks like Jon Snow. They basically end up attending a building holiday party together, and it just kind of goes from there. It's 64 pages. There's not a whole lot I can say without spoiling it. I did rate this 3.5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I was really surprised by how much I enjoyed it because this one has pretty low ratings. The next book that I read this month, you guys also just saw a reading vlog for it, which is Brimstone by Callie Hart, my prized possession. I obviously absolutely loved this book. I still can't talk much about it because, again, I don't want to spoil anything for anybody, but it's just a continuation of Quicksilver following Ceres and Kingfisher and Carrion and Rusarius and Renfis and Lorith and Danya and Onyx. All the characters. It was amazing. 5 fucking stars. Probably one of the easiest 5 stars I've given all year. It was amazing. Book number 9 that I read this month was another one of those from Under the Mistletoe collection novellas, and this was All by My Elf by Olivia Dade. This one I listened to strictly the audiobook, and I didn't really write much in my review other than it was a fun, entertaining little Christmas story. I'm gonna leave it at that because I don't remember it at all. Again, I thought it was better than most of the reviews were saying that it was, so I was kind of shocked that it wasn't as awful as everybody was saying it was. I did rate it 3 stars. The last book that I read this month is called The Santa Suit by Mary Kate Andrews. This is very special because this was my mom's last read, and she liked it so much that she actually sent me this in the mail so that I could read it as well during the holiday season. This book was so cute. I ended up rating it 3.5 stars. It follows a female main character named Ivy. Ivy recently moved to a small town in North Carolina because she bought a farmhouse sight unseen after her recent divorce because she just wanted an entirely new life, which is understandable. But basically, the story is just following her getting into this new small town, meeting all the people that are in this town. She becomes friends with her real estate agent, who is her neighbor, who ends up being the love interest. and there's a local girl in town who I think works for like the county courthouse. They end up becoming friends, and there's a weird little side plot in there about catfishing, which is extremely triggering. So I was really not expecting that, but it was still very good. The entire story mainly focuses on this mystery element. So in the house that the farmhouse that she bought, the people that used to live there were like, they were like the Christmas people in the town. They used to do crazy Christmas lights to the point where like people would drive around to take pictures in front of their house. They were also the local Santa and Mrs. Claus. Like they dressed up as Santa and Mrs. Claus and went around all the small towns. So when Ivy first moves in, she ends up finding the Santa suit, and inside the Santa suit, there's actually a little note that she takes out that's basically like a little letter from a little girl to Santa asking for what she wanted for Christmas, and it was to bring her dad home from the war. Ivy takes it upon herself to look into basically who she wants to find out who wrote this note, what was the conclusion to the story, did her dad ever make it home? And so the entire story kind of centers around this mystery and her trying to find out what happened to this little girl. And oh my goodness, I did not see the ending coming, and it was so heartwarming, had me in tears, absolutely adorable, loved it. I don't know if I said this, but I did also rate this 3.5 stars, which seems to be what I rate most books nowadays. Anyways, that is my December wrap up. As I mentioned at the beginning of this video, I do also want to pull my TBR for this month. I don't have anything fancy planned because I need to pull the books that I need to pull, you know? So there's not going to be any like there's no ornaments picking my books. I'm sorry, I'm boring. I'm just going to pick the books that I need to read this month and show them to you. Okay, I have pulled the books that I want to read this month. First one is Lovelight Farms by B.K. Borison. If you can tell by the cover, it just obviously is a holiday book. I'm actually going to read the synopsis of most of these books, just in case that's something that you want. You are not new here. You know that I go into most books blind, so I don't really ever read the synopsis, but we're trying something new today. So for Lovelight Farms, it says two best friends fake date to reach their holiday happily ever after in this first romantic comedy in the Lovelight series. Pasture of dead trees, a hostile takeover of the Santa barn by a family of raccoons, and shipments that have mysteriously gone missing. Lovelight Farms is not the magical winter wonderland of Stella Bloom's dreams. In an effort to save the Christmas trees, can she read? In an effort to save the Christmas tree farm she's loved since she was a kid, Stella enters a contest with Instagram famous influencer Evelyn St. James. With the added publicity and the $100,000 cash prize, Stella might just be able to save the farm from its financial woes. There's just one problem. To make the farm seem like a romantic destination for the holidays, she lied on her application and said that she owns Lovelight Farms with her boyfriend, only there is no boyfriend. Enter her best friend, Luca Peters. He just stopped by for some hot chocolate and somehow got a farm and a serious girlfriend in the process, but fake dating his best friend might be the best Christmas present he's ever received. That honestly sounds so cute. I have read 2 books by B.K. Borison this year, and they were both decent. I don't want to say mid because that sounds horrible, but they were above average. They just weren't great. Interested to see what that one's about. Told you to wait a few minutes. Oh, Mira, you want to talk about books with mommy? Oh, you want to be in front of the lights? Say hi to the people. No? You want on the bed? Oh my God! Jesus Christ, Ruby. Ugh. Anyways, the next book I'm going to try and get through this month is something I honestly just kind of want to get through to get it off my shelf, and that is Window Shopping by Tessa Bailey. This is actually not a book that I bought. This book I won last year. It was the first book I ever won in a Goodreads giveaway. This one says, a sizzling feel-good opposites attract holiday romance from Tessa Bailey, #1 New York Times bestselling author of It Happened One Summer, now in a beautiful new package. 2 weeks before Christmas and all through Manhattan, shop windows are decorated in red and green satin. That's supposed to rhyme. Stella is standing alone outside a famous department store when a charming man asks her opinion on the decor. It's a tragedy in tinsel, she says, unable to lie. Then he asks for a better idea with a twinkle in his eye. Okay. Why are we rhyming? She didn't know he owned the place, and when he put her on the spot, and now she's working for that man, trying to ignore that he's hot. But as a down-on-her-luck girl with a difficult past, Stella knows how to make a good opportunity last. So she gives it her all, working without stopping, trying to resist temptation because she's just window shopping. I started this book a few days ago and got a few pages in, and that literally makes me not want to read it. I'm also snacking on something that is very Christmassy. Ruby very much wants to see what I have. Ruby loves sniffing things. Yummy. Can't have this, sorry. Anyway, the next book I'll be reading this month is He Sees You While You're Sleeping. This says, it's the night before Christmas and I'm all alone in the house. Popular jewelry influencer Chloe Hallman is steeling herself to spend another holiday on her own, and said she finds herself drawn to two different guys. Love triangle. A smoldering hot fan of her secret seductive online persona, and a sexy fireman named Jack who looks out for her in the New York City neighborhood. She has no idea that I know her better. Oh, we've switched. Sorry, I should have known that from the change in font color. She has no idea that I know her better than she knows herself, her deepest secrets, her darkest desires. She's careful, but I've been watching, never leaving footprints in the snow outside her home. Jack was a first responder to the accident that stole a beautiful young woman's family 2 Christmases ago, and he's been quietly guarding her ever since. When Jack uncovers Chloe's secret account, his obsession only grows. Both he and Chloe are drawn to the darkness that mirrors their own. She's my Christmas wish come true, and I'm hers. She just doesn't know it yet. I'm so excited to read this. It also says, content warning, this book contains some dark elements: stalking, non-consensual snow shoveling, possessive love, forced Christmas joy, proceed with caution. This apparently also glows in the dark, which is interesting. Honestly, most excited to read that one. I'm sure no one is shocked. The next book that I want to read this month is Holiday Romance by Catherine Walsh. I just have heard a lot of really great things about this book. It's friends to lovers, contemporary romance. Something else that I want to read this month is a novella. It is Set the Record Straight by Hannah Bonham Young. All I know about this is it is a holiday novella and it is sapphic. So very excited to read that one. And the last thing that I am going to put on my TBR for this month, which to be honest, I'm probably not going to get to it, but Two Twisted Crowns by Rachel Gillig. I really had the intention, I promise, of starting this as soon as I got done with Brimstone, because basically what happened last month is I read One Dark Window. I finished it literally the day that Brimstone came out. I read Brimstone. It took me 10 days, and then I obviously didn't feel like reading this. So I really should prioritize this. I'm not gonna lie, I just don't care. So I'm gonna try and get to it. But if I don't, I don't, and it is what it is. Alrighty guys, that is my December TBR picks as well as my December wrap up. Homegirl is just sitting here whining. She is ready for her lunch. Anyways, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I sincerely appreciate your support. Please like and subscribe, and I will see y'all in the next one. Bye. Bye.